Welcome. In this video we're going to be looking at our table and table set functions. And so before we want to look at those table functions, we're going to go ahead and enter in an equation into our y equals. And you most likely already have the equation 1/2 x squared. Let's see, 1/2 x squared minus 6 already entered into your y equals from your previous part in your foldable, so we'll just go ahead and keep using that equation. And so once I have an equation entered into my y equals, we've already looked that we can graph that equation and see it on our screen. But another function that you have is right above your graph button is your table option. And so since it's in blue, we can access it by pressing the blue second button and then table, and that takes us to see our table values for this equation that we entered into our y equals. So as we're looking at our table, there are a few options that we have to set it up to give us different views. And so if you look on your calculator above your window button, you'll see table set written in blue, so we can access it by pressing second window. That takes us to our table setup. And so let's say that we're talking about a scenario where we don't really need the values of x where it's 0 to 10, where it's easy to scroll, but let's say that I wanted to start my table where x is 500. Maybe that's where I'm interested in looking at. I can tell my table to start at x equals 500 and go back to that table. And then now I see where x is 500. So if I'm searching as a student, instead of just knowing, taking my arrows and scrolling one by one to get to x is 500, I could start my table at 500 to get that value. Another option that you have in table set is to change the change value between your x values. So instead of starting at 0 and increasing by 1 each time, I could change it to increase by 100 each time. And then I could let's change our table start back to 500 so we have really pretty numbers. And now when I look at my table, I start at 500 and my x increases by 100 each time, so that I'm able to see my values, my y values, changing at a greater increase between my x values. And so those are two functions that you have in your table to help your students get a better picture of what's happening to the data over time, over their x values as those change for any equation that they enter into their y equals.